You see, now setting up a direct booking website for your short-term rentals may sound like a smart idea, but the reality is that for most of you, it's going to be a colossal waste of time and resources that you could be directing elsewhere, not to mention the increased risk. You see, I've navigated the waters of short-term rental arbitrage for over a decade now, utilizing Airbnb and VRBO for nearly all of my business that brings in over $2 million a year. Venturing outside of these giants in hopes of saving a little bit in fees is a huge mistake that a lot of operators, especially novice operators, are prone to make. My journey from a single property in 2012 to now having a curated list of about 25 properties has taught me the ins and outs of maximizing revenue while minimizing risks. I've hosted over 50,000 guests with a portfolio that brings in millions of dollars a year almost entirely through VRBO and Airbnb. This allows me to put my efforts into things that will actually scale my income, and let me tell you, direct bookings is not one of them, and it probably won't be for you either. Those two players are behemoths, and the likelihood of your website putting a big dent in your bottom line is slim, not to mention it's going to come with increased risk. You see, everybody who has this direct booking website and has big plans for it, they anticipate that this is going to be a big revenue driver for them and is going to make a big difference. They think they're going to be saving all this money in fees, but let me explain that it's not exactly the way it's cracked out to be. First of all, you're going to have development and maintenance expenses along with this website. Now there's a lot of tools where you can do this nearly for free. You can minimize some of that cost, but nevertheless, you're still going to have to build it out and put it to your specifications that is going to drive people willing to put their credit card info on your website versus these big players, Airbnb and VRBO that we mentioned before. You're still going to have maintenance of this website. You need to make sure that it's always operating properly. Everything is running smoothly, because if there's any sort of a glitch in it, users are going to be scared away and they're definitely not going to book from it. Now, also, when you have a direct booking website, you're going to have to process your own credit card payments. This is likely going to be through Stripe, or it could be through another credit card processor, but you're going to be paying credit card processing fees of about 3%. Now, one of the biggest risks that you're going to have with this direct booking website is chargeback risk. This is very real. You're going to get scammers that are coming and trying to book your properties. And in addition to not having scammers, you're just going to have people that are going to be taking advantage of the system, knowing that they're booking through a direct booking website, and they're going to find some little crack in your armor, and they're going to be able to go to the credit cards and dispute that. The credit card companies are generally going to be favorable for the user. So you, with your direct booking website, unless you run a really tight ship, you're going to have to go and fight back and basically create a case to not lose that money that came from the chargeback. This is not fun. I've been through it before many times. It's time consuming, and it's going to be a waste of your valuable resources, your most valuable resources, which is your time. Speaking of time, now let's come to the time investment that you're going to have with these direct booking websites. You're going to have another distribution channel that you're going to have to manage, and it's not going to be as central and unified as Airbnb and VRBO are able to do. Now, if you use property management software, for some of you, it's not going to be that big of a difference, but not everybody is using property management software, especially if you're a small operator. I do take direct bookings, there's no doubt about it, and I have tried to put some resources into it in the past, and that's why I'm creating this video. I don't think that it's worthwhile time and money-wise, but nevertheless, I have the infrastructure in place and it's there, but taking those bookings creates more friction and it's more difficult for me. It's just simply not as seamless as when I take an Airbnb or a VRBO booking. One small example of that is most users that are on Airbnb or VRBO, they have the actual app of their Airbnb or VRBO, and they're getting their messages through there. If they're booking directly through your website, they're not running that through your app in all likelihood. You don't have an actual app for your website. Even if you do, they're not likely to download it. So now you have to count on your messages being delivered to them, mostly through email and sometimes through text message. This can work, but again, it's just a little bit more friction. Now let's talk about something else, which is you've created this wonderful website that you're expecting all these users to come to and all these guests are going to be booking through. But the reality is that guests aren't going to find your property unless you put some effort into marketing that website. Now, this is going to be for a lot of you social media marketing, and let me tell you, that is time consuming. That is not a small investment of your time if you plan on doing it properly, where it actually drives income for you that makes a difference. You see, again, we come back to Airbnb and VRBO are behemoths. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing. They have these platforms with a huge user base that is driving guests to your properties just by being on their platform. You're not going to have that on your direct booking website, so you're going to have to make up for it. It can be done, but it's not going to be without a lot of effort. And my point is that your time is not that well spent in doing that versus your time should be spent on other things that are more valuable in terms of scaling your income. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking you're going to be saving all this money. Sure, you might save a couple percent in fees, but the reality is that it's not going to be a big needle mover. If you're paying 3% in Airbnb fees approximately, for some of you it may be more, but roughly 3%, and in VRBO's case, it can be anywhere from 3% to up to 5%, or it can just be a flat credit card processing fee. There's various structures there. Now we come back again to the power of scale with Airbnb and VRBO. These are massive companies that you are not going to be able to compete with them on a real level. Yes, you may over time be able to drive some sort of a percentage of your traffic to your website, but for most of you, for the most common person who is hosting and trying to make a living doing this, they are not going to have the success that they've been taught and have watched videos about and think it's going to be this huge home run. That's just very unlikely to happen. You're better off spending your time utilizing your resources of yourself to make your listing as good as possible. Spend more time, rather than putting your time into this website that you're driving direct traffic to, spend that time dialing in the property itself to make sure that it shines on these two platforms. You see, Airbnb and VRBO offer instant access to an audience of hundreds of millions of users. I don't know if it's hundreds of millions, but I know there's about 50 million users, I believe, on Airbnb and probably something like that on VRBO. But nevertheless, it's a huge audience that you are instantly involved with, and they are likely to find your property once you're on those platforms. Your measly website is not going to have that sort of an audience. This is also a global audience. This is a global audience that is going to be spending money. These are travelers from all over the world that are likely to find your website. It's not just people that have been driven to your website from a local social media influencer or somebody who is driving traffic to your site. This is a global audience that Airbnb and VRBO have spent millions of marketing dollars to bring onto those platforms, and they're going to find your property through there. No need to reinvent the wheel. No need to work that hard to find those users because they're already there waiting for your property to come online. And now again, when you're setting up this direct booking website, you're basically doing all this to save 3%. 3% is nothing. This is called insanity. This is a complete waste of resources, in my opinion. Not to mention it comes with increased risk. You see, in addition to the other things that we've mentioned so far in this video, Airbnb and VRBO come with extensive support systems that are part of the ecosystem surrounding the bookings that you're going to take. Now, for some bookings, you're not going to need it, but when you do need it, it's going to be nice to have Airbnb customer support or HomeAway customer support. I say HomeAway customer support, that's also VRBO. I use them sometimes interchangeably, but nevertheless, they have support systems that are in place to help you when problems arise. And believe me, problems do arise. I'm not saying those support systems are perfect, because they're definitely not, but nevertheless, it's a valuable safety net that you do have. Some of the most important parts of this support system is the insurance protection that you're getting from these platforms, as well as the dispute resolution, which is there to make sure that when a dispute does arise, it is solved in a reasonable manner. Now, coming back to insurance, this is one of the most valuable things that you're getting from these platforms. Airbnb and VRBO are both providing $1 million in liability protection against every booking that is taken through those platforms. This cannot be understated. This is expensive coverage to get if you're going to get it separately, and you probably should get it separately, but nevertheless, you have that in place as a safety net, and that is built into this 3% approximate fee that you're going to be paying to them. This is very cheap and is not something that should be discounted. Yes, you may not need it 99 times out of 100, but the one time that you do need it, you're going to be very happy that it's there. Now, if you're doing a risk analysis on this, does it really make sense for you to save 3% and then give up that insurance coverage on this booking that you have? You have to understand, anything can happen. People are drinking, people are partying, people are having a good time. These are high-risk bookings. Every single booking is essentially high risk, and there is some risk of something happening. You're giving up that insurance coverage just because you want to save 3%. That is not a good risk analysis assumption by most ways to measure it. Now, another part of this risk that you're going to be facing is chargeback risk. This is very real. If you're taking direct bookings, like we mentioned earlier, you're going to be having to do the credit card processing. You're going to have real chargeback risk. Now, with VRBO, depending on if you're on their property management platform or if you're a single host, then you may still have some of that risk. But with Airbnb, the chargeback risk is basically zero. You really don't have any risk there. Yes, there may be some fringe cases, but those are very few and very far between, and not even something that you need to be worried about. So the way to think about this is the value of these platform services. You see, you're paying them roughly 3%. You're paying this 3% because of all the different things that they do. They're giving you insurance coverage. They're providing you comprehensive support services around each booking, which are nothing to sneeze at. And you really need to view these not as an actual cost, but more as an investment into having this ecosystem surrounding each one of your bookings. You see, you want a hassle-free hosting experience, and they are there to help ensure that that happens. And I'm not the biggest fan in some cases. I'm not always biggest Airbnb fan or a VRBO fan. They both have their issues, but nevertheless, they make me millions of dollars every single year, and I'm appreciative of that. And now the last thing to remember about this is they have hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing dollars behind those companies that are pushing your listings to get booked by these travelers. That is the one thing that you definitely cannot duplicate with your direct booking website. Yes, if you're the very best of the best, if you're the Michael Jordan of direct booking websites and social media marketing, maybe you can make a slight difference in your bottom line. But the reality is that for 99% of you, it's going to be a colossal waste of time and not to mention increased risk. I've been in this business a long time, since 2012. There aren't a lot of operators that can say they've been in the business for that long, operating at a high level such as I have. And I've gone down this avenue of trying to make this direct booking thing work. I think about it, and I know I probably could make it work, but again, the time investment that is needed to put into it, it's going to subtract from things that would be a more valuable use of my time. Time is a precious resource, and you need to guard that. If you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. I'm here to provide boots on the ground experience for you guys that you guys can utilize in terms of either getting into the business or streamlining your business to make it better than it is. Thanks for watching, guys.